Hey everybody, welcome to Life is Beautiful. I'm Anthony, and today we're going to be doing an episode of This Week in Beer, the segment on my channel where we go through and we talk about the hardest hitting news stories coming out of the world of beer and brewing. This week was a very interesting one. There was some hard hitting stories for real that sent me on a little bit of a roller coaster of emotion, so I'm really excited to get into it, so let's do just that. The first one that I want to talk about comes from Argentina, and this story is absolutely bonkers. So sometime back in 2019, there were several breweries who wanted to form a little bit of a coalition and conduct a bit of an experiment where they were going to brew a bunch of strong beers. We're talking about 10 to 12%. And they were going to take the barrels and they were going to let them age, ferment, and condition under the ocean on the sea floor inside of a sunken Soviet-era vessel. The concept was going to be very similar in nature to kind of like what Brewdog did several years ago, where they did Sunk Punk, where they took the IPA and they fermented it in barrels under the Northern Sea, if I'm not mistaken. But the concept of this was going to be a little bit different because these breweries were going to be fermenting a really strong beer in more shallow waters where it would still be under pressure and still be in a unique conditioning and aging environment, but it wasn't going to be quite as intense as it was with the Brewdog situation. But it was still going to provide a wealth of knowledge on conditional fermenting. The breweries, they got together, they created over 700 liters of this strong beer and they dropped it down into this sea vessel, which is a common recreational diving location. And everything was going well for several months, and before it was supposed to be brought up and blended and mixed together and able to create a final product, the divers went down and they noticed that all the barrels were gone. The beer was just gone. This absolutely devastated all the brewers. One, they lost all that hard work and they lost all the wealth of knowledge and information as well as just the actual product. But even worse so was all the benefits and all the profits from this beer were going to go towards the Natural History Museum, furthering scientific education, research, and study. So, it was a massive loss in a variety of departments. The worst part of this whole thing is that the current belief is that there were so many barrels and there was so much beer that it would have been impossible for the potential thefts, the thieves, to be able to utilize it because it was, completely lukewarm. It was degassed. So it would have been very hot. If you've ever had a single barrel beer, you know how unrefined and just unpolished the final product is, from a single barrel. So it wouldn't have been even good beer. The current theory is that the beer wasn't even taken. It was just released. I think the direct quote was that it was just all the bands that were keeping the barrels together were just sent out to sea, and it was just malicious for malicious sake. Regardless, this is an absolutely heartbreaking, devastating story because there, like I said, there was so much to gain and benefit from, and it really, really sucks that somebody would either maliciously destroy and purposely lose these barrels out into the ocean, or just steal it. I guess that is kind of the risk and danger of doing an experiment like that in such a public domain where there's so many variables that could happen to it, but still, regardless, it's a bit of a blow. The only potential benefit is they said that they will do it again, so there is a lot of hope. Hopefully they choose a better way of securing their investment and their time in this research. But also, if that is the case where they let the beer barrels go just freely out into the ocean by the vandals, that maybe somewhere, some way, they will show up some point in the future, which I think would be even more of an interesting thing if they were able to reclaim those, repackage them, and sell them. Even if the beer isn't good, I would definitely spend a pretty penny trying to get a taste of that narrative tale. So let's keep our fingers crossed that the next batch goes better, and let's keep our eyes out for any mysterious floating barrels going throughout the ocean. Our next story is a little bit it's related to beer, but not quite like up in the same mix as, some of our other stories. And it's unfortunate to announce that the Alamo Drafthouse has filed for bankruptcy. Chapter 11. Leading officials for Alamo Drafthouse, they cited COVID-19 as, the leading cause for this to happen. And, it's pretty obvious to see. If you've never been to an Alamo Drafthouse, it's basically a movie theater that has really well-stocked beer. I mean, incredible selections at most locations. I mean, I know for a fact that I have spent a lot of time in Alamo Drafthouse locations sipping on a wide variety of like barrel-aged stouts and some pretty interesting lambics and sours and stuff. So it was a pretty immersive experience for people who are fans of both cinema and craft beer. So for me, I definitely see this as a tragedy. It's really sad to see this go because I do think it was a staple of the beer community, and some people viewed it as corporate or whatever, but I couldn't help think that it was just such an interesting and unique place to be, and I'm really sad to see it go. So hopefully some type of restructuring or something like that will come out of it and be able to keep Alamo Drafthouse afloat, and it's not a complete like firehouse cell, just closure where all their locations go under like a Kmart or something like that. But hopefully it will still continue to exist in some fashion or another, and hopefully if that is the case, not too much of it is changed, because like I said, it was a miraculous place to be if you were a movie fan and a beer buff. It was just the perfect fusion of two different worlds, and I see it as a tragedy, a total loss to the beer community as a whole. Our next story is a little bit of brewery business news coming out of Bend, Oregon. Deschutes Brewery, massive legacy brewery, I think it's in like the top 15 biggest craft brewers in the country, has Aquisitions, I don't know if that's the actual word. They've acquired the assets in a joint business venture with neighboring Bend, Oregon, brewery, Boneyard Brewing. The total financial amount of this deal was not disclosed. It hasn't been announced to the public yet, but I am sure some time in the future it will come out. And there also hasn't been a lot of explanation as to why Boneyard was purchased or why they willingly sold themselves to Deschutes. But I mean, we can use our analytical skills and we can kind of put together that it is a very tough, very rough marketing climate right now. There's a lot of competition, a lot of infighting, and I think this is just another step, another chapter in the growing merger of craft beer. As the market continues to become oversaturated, overcompetitive, a lot of infighting is going to happen, and alliances are going to need to be made. I mean, it's a simple fact of the matter. That's going to have to happen for so many breweries to stay afloat, especially with, I've mentioned this like 1,000 times on my channel, but the continuing decline of beer sales in America. So I think if I had to guess, that this is just a part of that. Why would these two breweries in the same location, continue to fight against each other when they could merge and pool their resources? From everything I've read, it doesn't seem like anything crazy is going to happen with Boneyard. It doesn't seem like they're going to stop production on some of their most beloved beers or, close their facilities or locations or anything like that. It seems that they're just going to all kind of work together as one corporate entity, providing as many offerings under several different brands as possible. And I think, like I said, this will continue to happen. I don't think that this is going to be the only story like this that I tell throughout the year of 2021 and even coming up in the next decade. Probably we're going to start seeing a lot more consolidation. We're going to start seeing a lot more breweries fusing together and creating powerhouses. And the interesting thing about that is, if I have to guess, I think it's going to end up being some type of like consolidation effort that we saw back in the early 1900s and even earlier, when all the big beer barons were forming together, creating all these massive beer conglomerations like Budweiser and Pabst and Coors and Miller and everything, where they were just buying each other up and creating significant powerhouses while still offering their respective brands throughout the country. The other side effect of that is, I think that is just the next evolution in the total corporatization of craft beer. I know a lot of people are going to be kind of bummed out about that, and I think people are going to be upset at the idea of losing independence and everything. But if craft beer is going to continue and thrive the way that we, saw during the bubble era, this is the next logical step. And, there are going to be consequences like losing your true independence and everything like that are going to come as side effects of that. So it's definitely a story to stay focused on. It's definitely a story to maintain your attention and notice as just another data point on a pattern of analysis that you can create, seeing where craft beer is going to be projected into the future. I think this is just another Dogfish Head and Samuel Adams. It's another Avondale and Good People. I mean, this is the future of craft beer. And the last story I want to talk about is coming out of Cleveland, Ohio at the Platform Brewing Company. Earlier this week, several images were circulating around social media showing basically all their workers have either formed a coalition and quit, or, they're going on some type of strike. From the imagery that I was able to find, it definitely looks like it is a full-on departure from the company. And it all stems from what they claim are unsafe working conditions being forced upon them by management at Platform in regards to COVID-19 safety. A handwritten note posted to the front door of the brewing company reads, "The entire Platform Columbus crew has quit. The tap room is closed until further notice. Thank you." Now, as far as what the employees or former employees were accusing Platform of doing, if you are in a profession that is adhering to the recommended safety guidelines, you're not supposed to be working extended hours, causing, or preventing cross-contamination, preventing the intermingling of your workforce that could be coming from a variety of different areas in hopes of mitigating the spread of COVID-19, right? So apparently the employees were being forced to work incredibly long split shifts, so hours on throughout multiple different staff iterations with lots of overlap. And I am a huge believer in COVID-19. I am a huge proponent, enforcer of, safety protocols. And it seems that this goes completely counter to what is being recommended by the leading officials in this area. Workers also accuse the managerial staff of forcing them to work like double shifts. And more egregious, I think, is the fact that reportedly there were at least one positive confirmed case of COVID-19 amongst the staff. And the managerial staff, they did nothing in order to, protect its employees. It didn't, send home for quarantine people who could have been exposed. They didn't do any like deep cleaning or sanitization process to protect not only their staff, but their customers. So, I mean, there's some serious stuff going on there, I think. The employees also mentioned an unchecked, unstopped, unmitigated rampant spread of black mold throughout the food containment areas. And if I have to guess, if something like that is able to happen, their tap lines and their storage rooms and everything like that are probably not better. All of which is a major concern. I mean, not only does that affect the potential health of your employees, but it affects the potential health of your customers. It's crazy to me that people who are supposed to be running a business allow something like that to happen. Not everybody should run a brewery, because shit like that unchecked shows poor management skills. Even if you take the COVID factors out of it, the mold alone should be a death knell. And when you talk about rampant mold spreads and things like that, it has a greater effect than just the people who are working there, eating there, drinking there, whatever. I guarantee that in the future, we're going to start seeing, federal crackdowns on breweries. We're going to start seeing federal crackdowns on brewing processes and everything like that, because it seems a lot of these places just do the most, buck wild shit, and they're not, taking proper safety protocols to ensure that their products are safe, clean. It's greatly disheartening. So not only do I think this is a harm for the local community, but I think it's a harm to the greater beer industry as a whole. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed. This was a pretty interesting This Week in Beer, in my opinion. There was a lot of interesting stories. Like I said, it took me on a roller coaster of emotion. I was angry, I was sad, I was heartbroken, and I was hopeful. I really hope you enjoyed. I really hope you learned something. If there was something I missed, please let me know. I will definitely make sure to give it a cover. And seriously, thank you all very much for all the support. It's been overwhelming here lately. So like, comment, subscribe. Remember, there's a story in every bottle, and that life is beautiful. Cheers, my friends.